He accused her of sharing my suite. So I said, "Take mine. I'll stay in the lounge." The first wrong thing was the spare white RFID keycard in my hand. Suite 412 had already been separated for emergency use. My laptop bag in the lounge, my garment case in the hall closet, the primary bedroom door open and untouched beyond the solid core divider. The rhythmic, muted click of the climate control relay kept the suite at a perfect 68 degrees, polite and invisible, as if the room itself had no idea it had become the center of a corporate ambush. Elena Parker stood in the corridor with a black leather carry-on at her side and a 90-page audit defense pressed flat against her tablet. She wore a buttoned cream blouse beneath a tailored navy blazer, the sleeves sharp enough to survive a boardroom and wrinkled enough to prove she'd spent the day fighting one. Her dark hair had been pinned neatly at dawn, I guessed, but a few loose waves had escaped around her face. She did not take the key. The system doesn't just delete a vice president's reservation on the first night of the annual retreat. "Ethan," she said, low enough that the elevators would not hear her. "No," I said, "it doesn't." Behind her, the corridor sconces threw warm amber light across the carpet. Downstairs, the flagship hotel was running at 104% occupancy because of a jazz festival, 3 coastal weddings, and a medical device convention that had apparently decided to bring every regional director west of Chicago. Every standard room was taken. Every corporate block had been locked. Every hotel within 20 miles had sent our front desk the same answer: no availability. I held the key card where she could see it without reaching into my space. "The desk is locked out of reinstating your folio," I said. "The front office manager can pull the audit trail, but not until morning without waking 3 layers of corporate IT. This is a 2-room corporate suite. Solid core door between the lounge and the primary bedroom. Separate half bath off the lounge. You take the primary. I'll take the pull-out in the lounge and keep the folio locked. No housekeeping access, no room charges, no names visible to general staff." Her eyes moved past me into the suite, not lingering on anything personal, only mapping exits and doors and risk. That was how Elena moved through the world, like a strategist who had learned that every room contained a hidden clause. I did not fill the silence. A good host never makes the guest feel the panic. The principle had been burned into me my first year managing luxury properties in Geneva, when a visiting diplomat security detail discovered the service elevator was down 6 minutes before he was due to leave. My mentor had not raised his voice. He had simply rerouted the staff through a linen corridor, moved 2 floral arrangements, and made the broken elevator disappear from the guest's experience. Hospitality, he told me afterward, was not the absence of crisis. It was the art of absorbing friction so someone else could keep walking. Elena was not a guest in the ordinary sense. She was the VP of strategy for our parent company, 4 years older than me, and one of the few executives whose projections I trusted more than a market report. I was director of luxury operations for the flagship property, which meant my job was to make disaster look like a preference. But this was not spilled wine or an angry ambassador. This was Marcus Vale. The restructuring auditor had arrived that morning with a gray suit, a colder smile, and a mandate from the board to find efficiencies before the next fiscal quarter. Everyone at the retreat knew what that meant. Efficiencies had names, offices, teams, mortgages, and children in private schools. Marcus just preferred to flatten them into columns. Elena's division was his largest target. "I have to present Q3 projections at 8 tomorrow," she said. "If Marcus sees me walk into a shared executive suite with the director of operations, he'll turn it into a character issue before breakfast." "Marcus will see you walk into the boardroom rested and prepared," I said, "because nobody knows you're in this suite except you, me, and a front office manager who reports directly to my office. I've already locked the folio." The climate control relay clicked behind me. I lowered the key by 1 inch, not toward her, just closer to neutral ground. "I can also call a car to take you to the airport," I said. "If you want to leave, I'll have security escort you through the service entrance. If you want the room, the primary is yours." For the first time, something in her face loosened. Not trust, not yet. Just the smallest acceptance that there was. In fact, a choice. She reached out and took the edge of the key card. carefully avoiding my fingers. "Thank you," she said. "I'll bring your bag to the bedroom door," I replied. "You can move it in from there." That made her pause. A lesser man might have missed it. Her grip tightened once around the card, then eased. She nodded and stepped inside. The suite smelled faintly of citrus polish and rain on wool. I rolled her carry-on to the open doorway of the primary bedroom, stopped at the threshold, and set it upright beside the luggage rack without crossing into the room. I checked the position of the blackout curtains from where I stood and saw the gap near the left edge that would throw a strip of morning light across the bed at 6. I pointed to it with 2 fingers. "Curtain gap on the left," I said. "If you close the inner panel first, it will seal." "You notice curtain gaps?" "I notice everything a guest should never have to notice." A thin line appeared at the corner of her mouth. It was almost a smile, or the memory of one. Then her phone buzzed against her tablet, and it vanished. In the lounge, she opened her laptop at the dining table before her suitcase zipper had even settled in the other room. She placed one hand beside the trackpad, missed the water glass by an inch when I set it down, and corrected herself before pretending nothing had happened. I did not tell her she was tired. I did not ask if she was all right. People who are 2 hours away from professional execution rarely appreciate being asked to narrate the bleeding. I simply placed the glass on a linen coaster near her left hand and stepped back. "The front desk was supposed to print my Q3 packets before the system locked me out," she said, eyes already on her screen. "I can work from the digital deck, but Marcus loves a room where everyone else has paper and one person is scrolling. I can get secure printing at 5:30. I said, "The business center opens at 6, but the banquet office has a locked printer." She looked up. "You have access to that?" "I have access to everything that can break during a retreat." The line earned the second almost smile of the night. I removed my suit jacket, hung it neatly on the back of the lounge chair, and rolled my cuffs. The suite clock showed 11:18. Downstairs, the retreat welcome dinner had finally released its last cluster of executives into the bar. The hotel had that late-night hush that only expensive properties can manage, not silence exactly, but the softened sound of money pretending it had never raised its voice. "I'll shower in the lounge bathroom," I said. "Then I'll keep the sofa light off. Lock the bedroom door from your side." I was halfway to the bathroom when the relay clicked again. "Ethan." I turned. Elena had stopped typing. Her fingers rested on the keys, but the screen had gone dim in front of her. "Who do you think deleted my reservation?" There it was. The question under the carpet. The one neither of us had been able to step around. "I don't know yet," I said, "but reservations leave fingerprints. In the morning, I'll pull the property management logs." "Will that put you in the middle of this? Only if the logs say I need to be there?" She studied me, deciding whether that was evasion or honesty. "Get some work done," I said. "I'll be quiet." At 5:30 the next morning, the climate control relay woke me before my alarm. A soft click, a breath of cold air, another click. It was the kind of sound nobody noticed unless they had spent too many years sleeping in rooms they did not own. I folded the sofa blanket into a hotel square, returned the extra pillow to the closet, and dressed in the lounge half-bath. The mirror showed the same man I had trained myself to become. Clean shirt, dark tie, no visible panic. I texted the front office manager before I tied my cufflinks. "Need Suite 412 Folio Audit Trail, PMS Access Logs, Key on Code History, and any third-party booking script activity from 1600 yesterday onward, direct to me, no copies." Her answer came 3 minutes later. "On it. Also, don't use Station 3 in the ballroom. Color temperature is off." I smiled despite myself. Good hotel people were worth their weight in emergency generators. I ordered room service under my name. Dark roast coffee, steel-cut oats, fresh fruit, and a small pot of hot water with lemon, because I had once seen Elena request that after a flight delay in Lisbon and then forget to drink it until it cooled. I signed the slip outside the suite so no one would knock. Then I wheeled the card into the lounge and left it near the primary bedroom door with a folded linen napkin over the plates. I sent her one text. "Breakfast by the door. I'm downstairs checking the ballroom. Suite is yours until 7:30. By 6, I was in the grand ballroom with the banquet captain, the AV lead, and a projection screen that had decided to turn every shade of blue into hospital green. Marcus wanted Strategy's heat maps to look amateur, and the left screen seemed very eager to help him. "Replace the bulb," I said. The AV lead grimaced. "Warehouse doesn't open until 8. Then we route all strategy decks to center and right. Left screen is for agenda slides only. No heat maps, no brand colors, no financial charts." The banquet captain made a note. "You think someone requested the vendor swap?" "I think coincidence is lazy management," I said. At 7:30, Elena appeared at the back of the ballroom with a sealed packet of notes under one arm. The navy blazer was pressed. The buttoned cream blouse looked fresh. Her face had the composed brightness of a woman who had slept less than 4 hours and dared the world to mention it. She stopped beside the media table, one thumb tapping once against the edge of her tablet. I had seen that tap in budget meetings, acquisition reviews, and one especially ugly call with the London office. Elena only did it when she had already calculated 3 exits and hated all of them. I approached with my eyes on the stage, not on her. "Left screen is distorting blues," I said. "If you have heat maps, use center." Her thumb stopped. "Marcus changed the AV vendor this morning." "I know. I had my in-house tech calibrate center and right. The left is now decorative." "Decorative?" "It has finally found work suited to its abilities." She glanced at me, and this time the smile stayed for half a second. Then she lowered her voice. "Marcus isn't going to attack the projections. He's going to argue that strategy is redundant." "Operations does not want strategy," I said. "You don't get to want or not want a board directive. I get to refuse unbudgeted liability if it affects flagship performance. My contract is inconvenient that way." She turned then. "You would put that in writing?" "If the numbers support it." Her tablet angled slightly toward me. Not handed over. Offered. "Do you want me to review the operational assumptions before you go up?" I asked. She hesitated just long enough to prove the choice cost her something. "Yes," she said, 20 minutes. We stood at the back of the ballroom with the tablet on the media table between us. I did not take it from her. She navigated, I pointed. Together we disassembled Marcus's restructuring model line by line. "Here," I said, tapping the air above a staffing block without touching the screen. "He assumes a 20% reduction in middle management across European properties within year 1. That's fictional. French labor law alone would turn that into a 2-year severance curve. Germany adds consultation requirements. Italy will laugh him out of the room in 3 languages. Elena's fingers moved quickly, adding a note. "He didn't account for local compliance. He builds spreadsheets, not hotels. When he says immediate capital recovery, ask him which ministry he plans to bypass first." A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. It was quiet, sharp, and gone quickly, but it changed the air around the table. "That's a terrible line," she said. "It's a useful line. Terrible lines are often useful." "Do you put that in the guest services manual?" "Only in the advanced edition." The AV lead, passing behind us with a coil of cable, muttered. I'd read that manual. Elena shook her head once, the kind of small human motion that slips through armor when the day is too heavy for perfection. She added the European labor compliance clause to her deck. The first session was brutal. Marcus sat near the front with 2 board members, asking questions that sounded like curiosity and landed like knives. He pushed on redundancy, questioned strategy's long-term value, and tried twice to recast Elena's division as a luxury the company could no longer afford. Each time, she met him with numbers, not defensive numbers, offensive ones. When he claimed operations could absorb market forecasting with minor transitional overhead, she routed the deck to the center screen and showed the labor compliance costs we had added at the back table. "Minor transitional overhead," she said evenly, "would begin at $4 million in year 1 exposure before the first integrated report is generated. That estimate is conservative. If Mr. Vale has a lawful path around the French Ministry of Labor, I'm sure the board would be interested in hearing it." One of the junior executives coughed into his coffee. Marcus did not smile again for 22 minutes. Relief arrived in pieces, a fresh coffee urn in the corridor. Elena's printed packet appearing at her seat before the second session, The left projection screen quietly wheeled away as if it had never been born. Then my phone buzzed. I was in the lobby reviewing afternoon arrivals when an email from Clara at the front office appeared under a restricted tag. Suite 412 log attached, also forwarding something odd from HR. Thought you should see it before lunch. The PMS log came first. Elena's reservation had not been deleted by a third-party script. It had been manually reallocated at 6:14 p.m. through a temporary audit access credential issued to Marcus Vale's consulting team. The action had been masked as a booking system overwrite and then backdated into the convention block. I saved the file into a locked folder. The second attachment was worse. It was a drafted termination and transfer agreement. Elena Parker's name sat at the top. The document was signed by the CFO and dated for the following Monday. Strategy would be dissolved. Any remaining functions would be absorbed by operations. Her role would be eliminated as redundant. The audit was theater. The ending had already been written. I found Elena on the outdoor terrace, where the ocean wind moved hard enough to rattle the metal cafe tables. She stood by the stone balustrade with a paper coffee cup held in both hands. A line of coffee had crept up through the lid seam and dried across her thumb, unnoticed. I stopped beside her but left space between us. "The front desk found the reservation glitch," she said without looking at me. "Apparently a third-party booking script overwrote the block. Accident. According to Marcus's assistant, it wasn't an accident." She turned. I unlocked my phone, opened the termination draft, and held the screen angled toward her, but still in my hand. "May I show you something?" She nodded. I gave her the phone and looked out at the water while she read. I did not narrate the wound. The PDF did enough damage on its own. Her thumb stopped on the CFO's signature. The paper cup collapsed slightly under her other hand, and coffee slipped over the rim onto the terrace stone. "Monday," she said. "Drafted, not ratified," I said, "but signed by the CFO. If the CFO signed it, the board will rubber stamp it. Not if the trigger clause fails." She looked back at the phone, then at me. I opened the second document, the transfer agreement. "They're claiming strategy is redundant because operations will absorb the remaining functions," I said. "That makes my department the receiving entity. Under my property performance contract, any transfer creating unbudgeted liability across the flagship portfolio requires my written authorization. Without it, they can recommend. They cannot execute cleanly. Marcus wouldn't make that mistake. Marcus doesn't run properties, he runs pressure." The wind flattened the edge of her blazer against her side. She glanced toward the ballroom windows. Through the glass, executives moved around white-clothed tables, drinking coffee and pretending the company was not being carved up between pastries. "You would refuse?" she asked. "If the numbers support it, and they do, they'll accuse you of taking sides. I am taking the side of operational reality. It is less glamorous than it sounds." She stared at me. The faintest break appeared in her composure. Not dramatic, just one thread slipping loose. "Why?" she asked. "You don't owe me this. Outside of budget meetings and retreat dinners, we barely know each other." I looked at the ocean until the answer came out as plain as I could make it. "I know competence when I see it. I don't let good architecture get torn down because someone wants cheaper drywall. And I don't let a colleague get ambushed by a fake audit when the facts are still available." Her grip shifted around my phone. She handed it back carefully, as if returning a piece of evidence. "Then what do we do?" That was the first time she had said we. The climate control relay was absent out on the terrace, but I heard its rhythm anyway. Click, pause, click, not panic, process. "We finish the afternoon session," I said. "Tonight. We build the operational refusal in writing. Tomorrow. If Marcus tries to execute the transfer, you lead with profitability. I present the refusal only if you ask me to. And the reservation log? We hold it until he makes accommodation an issue. If he never uses it, we don't either." Elena looked back at the hotel. "He'll use it. Then we make him regret being predictable." The afternoon session ended with strategy still alive, but bruised. Marcus kept smiling through his questions. Elena kept answering. The board kept pretending neutrality while taking notes on both sides of the knife. By 6, The formal corporate dinner had transformed the ballroom into something softer and more dangerous. Low amber chandeliers replaced conference lighting. White linens covered the tables. The jazz trio in the corner played polite versions of songs that were better when nobody in the room had a title. I was near the service station discussing dessert pacing with the banquet captain when I saw Marcus corner Elena near the bar. 2 junior executives stood with him, audience by design. Marcus never wasted cruelty in private when he could use it as a demonstration. I handed the banquet captain my clipboard. Hold dessert 5 minutes. If anyone asks, the soufflés are being dramatic. The captain, who had survived 12 years of corporate retreats, did not blink. Aren't they always? I crossed the ballroom without rushing. Rushing tells the room that panic has entered. A good host never makes the guest feel the panic. Marcus was speaking when I arrived. It is just a matter of recognizing when a strategy has run its course. Elena, he said, there is dignity in stepping aside before the board has to formalize the obvious. Marcus, I said, stopping beside Elena, parallel to her shoulder, not in front of her. I hope the seafood meets your standards. Chef sourced it locally for tonight. His smile tightened. Ethan, yes, fine. We were discussing corporate evolution, though I was surprised to hear about the accommodation issue last night. The front desk mentioned a mix-up. I hope you found somewhere suitable to sleep. Elena, there it was. Not a question. A match struck near dry paper. Elena's hand stilled around her glass. I kept my tone warm enough for witnesses and exact enough for records. There was a system error. I said, I placed the VP of Strategy in the corporate reserve suite under executive displacement protocol. The folio was locked, access was restricted, and the lounge was assigned separately. If you'd like, I can have my front office manager email you the standard operating procedure. It's a dry read, but it clarifies the policy beautifully. The 2 junior executives looked down into their drinks. Marcus's eyes narrowed. No need. I was merely ensuring our executives are taken care of. Always, I said. He turned away with the particular stiffness of a man who had stepped on a rake in public. Only after he moved out of earshot did I look at Elena. Are you all right? He knew. He knew about the corporate reserve suite. I said, he does not know anything improper because there is nothing improper to know. She set the glass down on the bar with a quiet click. Good, she said, because tomorrow I need every inch of the room to belong to the facts. Then tonight we build them. We returned to Suite 412 after dinner, not because the room was private, but because it was secure. I left the main door on the latch while she entered first. The key card reader blinked green, then red, then settled dark. The climate control relay clicked above the lounge ceiling as if checking attendance. Elena set her tablet on the dining table. I placed the operational transfer draft beside it, along with the printed PMS log Clara had sealed in an envelope. The suite looked less like shared accommodation now and more like a temporary command center. Laptops open, legal pads lined up, water glasses sweating onto linen coasters. Before we start, I said, I need to ask directly, do you want my operational refusal in your board packet, or do you want to hold it until Marcus forces the issue? Elena pulled out a chair and sat. I want it ready, she said. But I don't want it to look like you rescued my division. I want to make the argument first. Then we structure it that way. Your profitability defense leads. My refusal only triggers if Marcus claims operations can absorb strategy. Good. For the next 4 hours, we worked across from each other with the key card lying in the middle of the table like a small white boundary marker. She rewrote her defense. I drafted the operational refusal. We cross-checked labor law assumptions, property portfolio exposure, workload distribution, and brand standard violations. At 11:40, she pushed the hair from her face with the back of her wrist and missed the same sentence twice. I slid a plate toward her. Turkey sandwich, cut diagonally, no garnish. Hotel kitchens believe garnish proves care. People under siege usually need fewer leaves and more food. She looked at the plate. When did you order that? Before dessert. You ordered a sandwich during a corporate ambush? A good host anticipates future hunger. That is either deeply kind or deeply unsettling. In luxury operations, the line is thin. This time she laughed softly and ate half the sandwich while reviewing my second paragraph. Near midnight, Clara sent the chain of custody file for the reservation log. The metadata showed the temporary audit credential, the manual reallocation, and the attempt to mask the change through a third-party booking script. Marcus had not just known about the accommodation problem. His team had created it. Elena read the log twice. We can prove he set the trap. If he opens the door, yes. And if he doesn't, then we beat him without needing it. She sat back and looked at the table. Her deck, my refusal, the PMS log, the key card, the half-finished sandwich, the water glass I had refilled 3 times without mentioning it. Something about the arrangement steadied her. I saw it in the way she squared the legal pad against the table edge before picking up her pen. Print 3 copies, she said. 1 for the chair, 1 for legal, 1 for Marcus if he asks a question stupid enough to deserve paper. That's most questions. Then print 4. By morning, the fog had rolled in from the coast and wrapped the hotel windows in white. The ballroom corridor smelled of coffee, floor polish, and the faint panic of executives who knew final sessions produced casualties. Before the board entered, Elena and I stood outside the boardroom with our packets in separate folders. No one watching us would have seen anything but 2 executives reviewing their own documents. I asked anyway, "Do you want me to present the operational refusal, or do you want to lead it?" Elena looked through the glass at Marcus arranging his slides at the head of the table. "Present the refusal if he invokes the transfer," she said. "I'll close the audit." Understood. She adjusted the cuff of her blazer, then handed me 1 copy of the PMS log. "If he brings up the suite again," she said, "use it. I won't let him turn a hotel protocol into a rumor." "Your call." "My call," she agreed. The boardroom filled slowly. Chairs moved. Coffee cups landed on coasters. Marcus opened with a smile sharp enough to cut the air. Elena was magnificent. She did not defend strategy as if begging for mercy. She demonstrated profit lines, acquisition timing, geographic expansion risks, and the cost of losing a division that saw around corners. She used the European labor compliance flaw to puncture Marcus's central efficiency claim. She redirected every question back to measurable outcomes. For 40 minutes, the board followed her. Then Marcus played his last card. "This is persuasive theory," he said, rising from his chair with theatrical regret. "But the CFO has already reviewed the transition. As of Monday, strategy's remaining necessary functions will be absorbed by operations. The division, regrettably, is redundant." He projected the termination and transfer agreement onto the screen. The room went still. Elena did not flinch. She looked at me once, not for permission, but to open the sequence we had agreed upon. I stood from the back row. "Operations formally declines the transfer of the strategy division," I said. Marcus turned slowly. "You do not have authority to block a board-approved restructuring. Under my property performance contract, any transfer that creates unbudgeted liability across the flagship portfolio requires my written authorization. I am refusing that authorization on operational and compliance grounds." I placed the signed refusal on the table nearest the board chair. "Mr. Vale's model violates 3 core brand standards regarding workload distribution and fails to account for European labor compliance. Absorbing strategy under these terms would cost operations an estimated $4 million in first-year exposure alone. I will not authorize that liability." The chair picked up the document and adjusted his glasses. "Is this accurate?" "It is," I said. "Legal can verify the clause." Marcus's face hardened. This is collusion. She lost her hotel room during the retreat, and suddenly the director of operations is running her defense. I want a full inquiry into their professional relationship. There was the second door. Elena stepped away from the podium before I could speak. She did not look at me. She looked at the chair. "I would like the room allocation audit trail entered into the record," she said. "Mr. Vale's temporary audit credential manually reallocated my reservation yesterday evening, masked the action through a third-party booking script, and then attempted to use the displacement as innuendo in front of junior staff at dinner. Ethan followed executive displacement protocol after your auditor created the problem." She placed the sealed PMS log on the table. Marcus went pale around the mouth. The chair opened the folder. The general counsel beside him leaned closer. Pages turned. The climate control system hummed above us, steady and invisible, doing its work while the room finally saw the machinery Marcus had tried to hide. "Mr. Vale," the chair said, "is this your credential?" Marcus's mouth opened. No useful sound came out. Elena picked up her tablet. "If there are no further questions regarding my division's proven profitability," she said, her voice clear enough to reach the far wall, "I consider this audit concluded." She closed the tablet. No one stopped her. She walked out first. I followed 30 seconds later, because 30 seconds mattered. It kept her victory hers. Back in Suite 412, the room looked smaller than it had the night before. Or maybe the crisis had stopped expanding to fill it. The climate control relay clicked once, then again. For the first time in 3 days, neither of us reached for a phone. I picked up my duffel from the lounge and folded the sofa blanket. Elena emerged from the primary bedroom with her blazer draped over one arm and the white RFID key card in her hand. "What are you doing?" she asked. "The retreat is over." I said, "Marcus is in with legal. The board is convening a private session. You should have the suite to yourself tonight. I'll book the airport hotel." She crossed to the dining table and placed the key card between us. Not close enough to corner me. Not dramatic enough to be mistaken for panic. Just a deliberate choice set down on a polished surface. "I negotiated my own terms today," she said. "I kept my division. I fought for my own space." "You did? So I don't need a protector anymore." "No." Her hand rested beside the key card, not touching it. "But I would like you to stay for dinner," she said. "In the lounge, with the door open, if you want to." The relay clicked again. A good host never makes the guest feel the panic. A good partner, I was beginning to understand, and does not turn calm into control. He leaves the exit visible. He lets the choice stay on the table. I set the folded blanket down. "Dinner in the lounge," I said. "Door open, your terms." She offered her hand across the table. I took it. Nothing rushed, nothing hidden, just her fingers steady in mine. The white key card lying between us like proof that a boundary could become a bridge without disappearing. 6 months later, the climate control in my apartment clicked with a similar muted rhythm. Winter rain tapped against the windows overlooking the city. Inside, the kitchen was warm, and the French press timer had exactly 1 minute left. I was measuring coffee grounds with the unnecessary precision of a man who had spent too long around 5-star breakfast service and refused to apologize for it. The front door unlocked. Elena stepped in shaking rain from a black umbrella, a thick binder tucked under one arm and a wool coat buttoned to her chin. She kicked the door shut with her heel, missed the mat, noticed, then corrected the umbrella by 2 inches before looking at me. "The board approved the expansion strategy," she said. "I lifted the kettle from the stove. Congratulations. They also asked if I would lead the European transition team." I poured hot water over lemon in her favorite mug and set it near the edge of the island before taking her coat. "And what did you say?" She wrapped both hands around the mug, letting the steam warm her face. "I said I would check my partner's schedule," she said. "Since he runs European operations and has strong feelings about local labor compliance. Deeply romantic feelings. Obviously, nothing says devotion like severance scaling." I laughed, and she smiled into the steam. On the small tray by the door, beside my keys, lay the old white RFID card from Suite 412. She had kept it after the retreat, not as a secret and not as a trophy, but as a reminder of the first boundary we had made visible and respected. Elena picked it up now and used it to hold open the binder while she showed me the expansion map. The climate control relay clicked once overhead. I looked at the card, her notes, the lemon water cooling beside her hand, and understood the shape of the thing we had built. Not rescue, not panic disguised as passion. A room where facts could sit on the table, doors could stay open, and both people could choose to remain. The end.